Hey guys, Aaron Wilson at the Seattle airport, and the day after the Texans' stinging loss to the Seattle Seahawks, the embarrassment and humiliation probably don't fade much for the players involved and for the coaches. And the 15 days to prepare, obviously not time well spent, as the Texans dropped to 2-4, and they are of course winless here in Seattle, never beating the Seahawks. I was here for the previous last game against the Seahawks when Russell Wilson outdueled a young, in his prime, Deshaun Watson for all of the drama and all the injuries. So where the Texans stand, I think, I don't want to bury the headline, it's not a surprising one for Texans coach DeMeco Ryans. Sticking with embattled offensive coordinator Nick Caley. Yes, I said embattled. There's definitely some pressure, not just self-generated. This offense has regressed, and if I was to tell you, and I've heard from some of you fans, that you wish for the Bobby Slowick era, that they had said, you know what, that's probably the best we're going to do right now, instead of giving another rookie play caller a chance. Slowick, really his year 2, that was the backslide, but there was other reasons behind it. The offensive line. And the offensive line's gotten even worse. They kind of fooled us maybe a little bit, or I don't know if they fooled us, allowed us to get sort of a false sense of complacency, and maybe they fell into that too with what happened. But we were always saying all along, every time, and I'm on record, the Ravens are not an NFL team right now. The Tennessee Titans aren't very good, except for Jeffrey Simmons. So for the Texans, where's the hope? Well, sounds like a stay the course type of situation, and in many ways it could get worse. So yeah, I want to go into something with DeMeco's comment about the offense, and he said we're pressing ahead forward with everybody that they have. Everybody, meaning Nick Caley. He says, if you want to point the finger at anybody, put it on me. So good for DeMeco. Be accountable. Don't throw your rookie offensive coordinator under the bus. That's not good. He said it's his job to get it fixed, and he said that's how it's going to be. They're going to roll with what they have, and they all got to do better. Coach it better, play better, execute better. He says it's as bad as it seems, and I was glad that he was very honest about this. As ugly as it may be, we got to find ways to make plays at the end of the game. Right now, they're just not a clutch team. They've got to get that. They've got to be a team that, fourth quarter, when it's tough, when you've got to grit things out, that they're there. I think that they need to be tougher, not physically, but tougher mentally. There's too many guys that accept, well, this happened, and that's why, and they should have called this. No excuses. Like they say in New England, or they used to, back in the good Belichick days, do your job. Just do your job. And it's got to be that hard-nosed mentality that's going to carry the Texans through this, and they got to be more creative. The idea that Nick Caley can just run Woody Marks like he's Jerome Bettis or some other big back and just expect him, he's going to break all these tackles and he's going to get these yards, it's just unfathomable. What is he thinking? How is this going to work? And not just be defeatist, but it just doesn't make sense. And as DeMeco said, they got knocked off the ball. And if they want to be able to run the ball, they got to be able to run the ball, get 1 yard. They're going to knock back up front. They're not going to get that yard. So they got to displace the line of scrimmage, his terminology like that. They didn't do it, therefore they're not successful getting the yard. These are the differences between winning and losing. The defense set the table for these guys in an absolutely elite way with the 4 turnovers against a very good Seattle offense that's got Jackson Smith in the jig with. It's got a good quarterback in Sam Darnold. They were given some gifts. I mean, that wide receiver option pass, Cooper Kupp threw that interception, that's not going to happen. There's going to be a game where the Texans can get blown out. I'm talking about embarrassed. You talking about this is embarrassing? It can get worse. And they're playing the San Francisco 49ers, who are just so well coached. And we heard a lot this week about DeMeco Ryans and his time there, and the Robert Saleh defensive system, and how they're doing it even with missing some guys, elite guys like Fred Warner. And you're going to hear about how do you stop George Kittle, and how do you stop Christian McCaffrey. And the defense, another big test against a smart play calling coach in Kyle Shanahan. So for this team going forward, as DeMeco said, and he sounded a little bit like Bill Belichick at the start of his press conference today. It's a Zoom. We were talking to him virtually. We have to do our jobs. He said, we expect to win. Do your job. I agree. They've got to do their job. They got to do their job better. Remember The Departed? The guy said, I'm the guy that does his job. You must be the other guy. It was Mark Wahlberg. It was a really good supporting character in that movie. A movie I like. And Texans might have to do this without Nico Collins and without Christian Kirk. So Nico is in the concussion protocol. What that means is he banged his head on the turf, and it was bad enough that he had to leave the game. There will be a series of baseline neurological exams. If he can pass those, have no symptoms, practice, and not have a recurrence of the symptoms, then he can be medically cleared. And then it's a judgment call if they think that he's far enough along and away from the symptoms. We're talking about his brain here. Much more important than a football game. When Nico Collins is 50, 60 years old, you want him to have the same acuity. So you look at the mental, what's really important. That's one thing you don't mess around with. In the old days, yeah, they used to. Concussions are taken very seriously now. They need to be. There's litigation, CTE, all those things. So we'll see how he does. I got a lot of questions about why do they rotate guards? Okay. So DeMeco Ryans' answer to that, he says that gives them a better situation at left guard, and how they do that, he likes these guys better on a pitch count. And I don't think it's a conditioning thing. I think it's just that they really haven't had a lot of success either way when it comes to whether it's Laken Tomlinson or whether it's Juice Scruggs. So they're sharing the left guard job, and that's unusual. It's not ideal. Everything else is locked down. So for what it's worth, 43 snaps with the start for Laken Tomlinson, 57% of the overall offensive playing time. Scruggs, he played 33 snaps for 43% of the offensive snaps. And the grades, Tomlinson graded out higher. 64.2 overall blocking grade, still not a high grade. 57.8 run block, 74.7 pass protection, 1 hurry, 1 pressure. Scruggs did not fare as well. 52.1 overall blocking grade, 66.1 run blocking grade, 54.2 pass blocking, 1 quarterback hit, 1 hurry, 1 pressure. So it wasn't like that was why they didn't win the game. I mean, I thought Ed Ingram, this wasn't a good game by him. This wasn't one of Titus Howard's better games. But regardless, it was in the game, in close quarters, in the red zone, not good. So sticking with Caley, let's talk more about that. I look at that and, they averaged 21.9 points, 320 yards per game last season. This year they're down to 21.2, 304 yards a game. So it's kind of marginal. But if you subtract the 70 combined points, Ravens, Titans, especially the uptick of the Ravens game, it boosted the stats to 16 points per game. It would have been 16 points per game, rather, without that. Already last year, 52 sacks for C.J. Stroud. Now he's tied for 9th in sacks, 15, but he's pressured 13th most, 74. 3 sacks last night, a couple of near safeties, and just not back to the rookie form, the 40,108 yards, so 23 touchdowns, 5 picks, leading the NFL in touchdown interception ratio. This year, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 91 passer rating. And you did hear this from DeMeco Ryans, that C.J. Stroud needs to do a better job of getting the ball out, and he needs to run the offense better. So a little bit of criticism of the quarterback. And I think that's fair. He didn't play a great game. And CJ said that too. He didn't play that well. Going back to Nico, I got off track a little bit. Christian Kirk has a hamstring injury. So what you might have out there against the Bang Bang Niner gang is Xavier Hutchinson, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Noel, Braxton Berrios. And your best player right now, your leading for catches, 30 catches this year, Dalton Schultz. 9 catches, 98 yards off those play action plays on 10 targets. Keep the Dalton Schultz thing rolling. Got to do something with him. Keep it going. But yeah, you could not have Collins. You could not have Kirk. So keep that in mind. Like the accountability I heard from Titus Howard, and he said we let the defense down. They're complacent, stagnant. 254 yards total offense. 2 of 15 on 3rd down. 1 for 4 on 4th down. 1 for 3 in the red zone. I agree with him. They let the team down. and there's some anger, there's some discontent, touch of disbelief, all the optimism of the previous 2 weeks. And we're part of it too, the media. We got to respond to it. I mean, you got to say, okay, how do you just say, well, that doesn't matter? You can say, well, maybe it doesn't matter, but to know definitively that it wouldn't matter, you got to see. That's why you got to play the games. And it was ugly. I mean, this is a game that they won't soon forget. It could get worse. Are they going to be favored to beat the 49ers? No, I don't think so. I don't think they should be. The Denver Broncos, these are tough games, and they've got to get better. C.J. Stroud pressured 17 times, a couple of near safeties. They got some good calls. Really, this game should have been a blowout. But the defense is outstanding, especially Will Anderson Jr. A lot of praise for Will Anderson Jr. Some people want to know, well, why did Berrios play? And Berrios is pretty good in the preseason. He played a good returner. He's been a Pro Bowl returner before, All-Pro actually. And they decided to give him a spin. And DeMeco Ryans defended that decision today too. Why play Berrios? Why not play Noel? They wanted to use Noel more at receiver. When they did use him, he was pretty electric. In the words of DeMeco Ryans, phenomenal. Not phenomenal, but I think he was very good. He called him probably their most explosive player, pushing the ball down the field. And not a lot of these guys get separation. He can get separation. It's tough. They got to be able to use Jaden Higgins more. Jaden Higgins got to continue to grow into a role where he's going to be, someone that they can really count on and use more of. There is big playability in general. We've seen that before on punt returns. We've seen it in many ways, but the offensive issues, they're just the same. It keeps going, and they've got to get better. It's just the same problems, different weeks, different seasons, but you have similar results. On the penalty issue, Azeez Al-Shaair, he did make some points about the whistle not being blown, and DeMeco Ryans concurred with that. And there were some points where forward progress is stopped, you don't hear the whistle, and he agreed with that point. I think on the penalties, and I asked about the penalties today, having so many errors, losing their cool, not having good mental composure, and he talked about technique. I think it's more than technique. I think it's about not just, it's about mental discipline more so. It's not just about having the knowledge of what the play is supposed to be and you're not sure of yourself. Trade deadline, that came up. He says that he's not focused on the trade deadline, he's focused on coaching the guys he's got. I don't see why you trade, you're not one player or two players away. So I don't think that makes a lot of sense unless you get somebody where you're kind of buying low, as they say, a stock that's a little bit depressed and maybe it's going to go up in your system, like an Ed Ingram. Ed Ingram over balance has had a good fresh start with the Texans. So I don't agree with it, in terms of trying to trade. Maybe dumping some guys for some draft picks. I like that idea, if you even like this draft, and not everybody does. So another question that came up was cornerback alignment. Why not press more against JSN? I think he can beat press. I think that you do want to play off him a little bit and then cover. Overall, it just wasn't a great game. I know there was an interception by Derek Singleton Jr., but it wasn't one of his best games. He did slip. He's had a couple of slips, and then you give up the touchdown. So where the Texans go from here? Back to work. They had game plan day today, but they're back at it. And a short week. And NFL, it's an unforgiving league. Everybody knows that. And they're in a tough situation. They've got to right the ship, and they got to pull off an upset. And the 49ers with Mac Jones, it looks like it'll be Mac Jones, they're still a very good team. He is tough, but he will get hit a lot. I'll say this again, he'll get hit a lot, I believe, by Will Anderson Jr. Neil Hunter, quiet game by him. He's got to do better. But overall, the guard rotation will continue. The short-handed receiver situation, you got to be able to run the ball. And I question, against big Trent Williams, are they going to get as much penetration? I mean, there's some serious offensive linemen. They're well coached. 49ers are sound. They run some cool plays. They might look like they're going to do the same play, but they run something different out of it. Christian McCaffrey is a playmaker supreme, one of the best, and he's healthy. So the Texans have their hands full, and if they can pull this off and somehow win a defensive battle against the 49ers, who are outstanding in very many categories, and tip my fake hat to Nick Ryans and his coaching staff. They've got to get better, and they've got to stop the bleeding. 2-4. The season's getting off rails real fast. They got to get this train back on the tracks, and we'll see what they're made of. I think we're going to find out a lot about this team, just like we just found out some things you probably didn't want to hear about the Texans. I know, I read all the comments. I know how upset people are. You got a right to be. That's why you're fans. Be journalist, objective about it, but I got to be honest. And I'm not. It gives me no joy to criticize or to be, point out the ugly facts, but we can't ignore the truth, right? And the truth is, right now, the Texans are not a very good football team. They're not looking very well coached. They're not looking very efficient on offense. They got a defense, and they've made this heavy investment on defense. They got to start investing more and more into this offense. And at your street, you get a rough game. The whole offensive line, none of them covered in glory. Running backs don't have nowhere to go. And C.J. Stroud under some serious duress. And we see again what happens when he's under duress. So a lot of answers the Texans have to figure out right now, just mostly questions. Guys, I'm going to get on the plane, fly home. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and including some of the people that were viewing the channel late at night when I was able to post. Just the game was way too late. I didn't like it much either. I don't think anyone does, but that's the National Football League. They do what they want. It's their league, it's their football, and the rest of us, if you don't like it, don't cover them. But I look forward to coming back home, and let's see what they can do with this home stretch. It could be a defining span for this season. Please watch, like, subscribe, and check me out also on YouTube television, www.wilson.com, our website, which is of course free of charge, and of course here at Aaron Wilson Sport. And get some interest from some people that want to get involved with the channel, sponsorships, small businesses, anybody that's the right fit, I'm interested in. So I'm very easy to find. Contact me via direct message, and see if we can work something out. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks, bye.